Hello, this is Ellen Foley, and this is my Week 7 reflection journal. Let's get started. So, the insights section is where I'm starting. My first insight, I'm calling it Know What You're Doing When It Comes to Assessments. This is something, it's actually been really interesting doing the readings for this week because I'm in the assessments class and I'm seeing lots of I've seen lots of overlap with ideas and with principles regarding assessment in the text that we read and in what I'm learning in that class. And something that we talk about in that class all the time, and that was mentioned in the reading as well, is that you really do need to be familiar with the different types of assessments, and you need to be familiar with your skills when it comes to assessments, because we have to make decisions based on the data we gather. And so if we're gathering data using assessments that aren't valid or reliable, then we're not going to be making valid or reliable decisions. So then ultimately we're not benefiting the children that we're assessing. So it really is important to be aware of your own skills and be aware of your own strength, and then being able to recognize when you need to outsource to somebody else to do something, or where you could practice and improve, and also being aware of the different types of assessments that you need to use so that you can choose the best one for that situation. Something that that's something that I'm doing right now actually in my assessments class is we are learning about the different types of assessments that we can use, and they're pretty much all focused on early childhood, the ones that we're really talking about in class and the ones that we're being exposed to. And something that I want to start doing is I want to start checking out the different assessments from the locker, I guess, where they keep them. And I want to practice. I want to practice on my roommates. I want to read through the manuals. I want to be aware of what's inside so that I can be familiar and be more competent and, I guess, walk towards or be on the road toward mastery. My second insight, I'm calling it Look at the Whole Picture. This is also something we talked about in my assessments class. We talked about how if you're looking at a child in one setting on one day at one time of that day, then that's just a snapshot compared to in that same setting but another day, and then compared to in that setting but then they're with different people, and or if they're in a different setting and they're with different people. And I don't know, I'm kind of speaking in generalities, but the basic idea is you can't go off of just one assessment or one observation. You can't just go off records, you can't just go off interviews. You have to have a whole picture. You have to have a whole slew of information so that you can make a more informed decision. And so it's very important to gather data in areas where you're lacking. And yeah, that's basically where I'm going with this. And just focus on the whole picture, not just one aspect. This is something that we do at the beginning of Child Labs. We go to the homes and we do home visits, and we have conversations with the parents, and then we're able to fill out the developmental checklists. And those, and going into the home and seeing the child in the home and how they interact, that is part of the whole picture. And then being in the classroom and observing there, that's also part of the picture. And that's something that I want to continue to do when I'm older. Even if I'm not in the preschool setting, even if I go off to be an elementary school teacher, I still really do want to do home visits. I think that it's so important to be aware of what the home dynamic is like and what the family is like and how the child interacts in their home. So that's something that I definitely want to do, and it's part of the whole picture. My third insight, I'm calling it Yeah, I guess I'll stick with the way I phrased it. I'm calling it "Be aware of and take advantage of previously collected data." It was in, I believe, chapter 7 of the Developmentally Appropriate Curriculum book, where there was a brief example. This teacher, in their example, said, "Oh, I don't want to know." I don't know. She was basically like, "I don't want them to tell me things about the child before the child comes into the classroom, because then it'll affect my opinion, you know? It will, I don't know, it was, I can't remember exactly what she phrased it. I should have written it down, but it was basically like, oh, you know, if they tell me what the child is like before they come into the classroom, then how am I going to know what the child is like? And I mean, I can see that point, but that doesn't mean that you ignore everything that this doesn't mean you ignore the data that's already been collected, you know. Another reason we keep information in the folders, you know, we have webs for different children who, and these webs have been filled out from previous labs. And so we have this information, and then we have old developmental checklists, you know. We have access to this information, and it would be really silly to throw it all out and ignore it. Like, that just, it's so counterintuitive. And it really, it slows down the process, because if you are ignoring things that have already, if you're ignoring data that has already been collected because you don't want your opinion to be formed of the child before they come in, like, that's just, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense to me. The data is still important, and it's there for a reason, and it's there so that you don't have to gather it. It's already been gathered, and then you can just add to or refine what you already know. So that's something that I'm already doing when I'm making lesson plans for the children, is I'm looking at the information in their reports. I'm looking at what they're able to do, what their strengths are. I'm looking at the goals that the parents have for them that they want their child to improve on. I'm looking at their interests, and this is all previously collected data, and it's helping me so that I can make effective lesson plans. So it's really important to take advantage of previously collected data. My fourth insight, I'm calling it build a strong relationship or rapport with the children. And this is something that we talk about in assessments as well, the importance of building rapport with the children that you're assessing and the families that you're working with. Because when you have that relationship and you have that rapport, there's trust, and there is a level of comfort that follows. And you're more likely to collect valid and reliable data when the child is less anxious around you. And if you can assess the children in a way that they don't even know that they're being assessed, that can be incredibly helpful. And so, I mean, it's not, and not just for assessments, obviously. It's very important to build a relationship with the children that you're working with, because, I mean, what child wants to be in a classroom where they don't enjoy spending time with their teacher, they don't enjoy interacting with their teacher? And so even just aside from assessments, building a relationship with the children is very important. But also, for assessments, building that rapport, building that relationship means that you can have access to more data, probably, because they have that level of trust and comfort. And yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm going to stop. But yeah. So something that I'm already trying to do in the classroom is I'm trying to have that rapport. And I've noticed that it's a lot easier to do pre-assessments when I mean, there are some children that I have better relationships with than other children, and it's really easy to do pre-assessments with them because they're already very comfortable around me, and so then they don't mind talking. And so that's something that I've already noticed, and something that I want to keep doing is building relationships and rapport with the children. My last insight, which, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it's something that was emphasized a lot during the reading, and it's something that we talk about in assessments all the time, and not just in my assessments class, just in all of our classes. It's that assessment drives instruction. And so we assess the children, and then based on the data that we gather, that informs how we are going to differentiate instruction. It informs how we are going to deliver the content. It decides what we need to teach and how we need to teach it. Assessment is essential for assessment drives instruction. It's super important. That's something that we kind of already do in the preschool program. We have pre-assessments, and based on the misconceptions that the children have, based on the knowledge that they already have on the subject, or lack of knowledge thereof, that lets us know what we can teach them during small focus, or in our case, during gathering time. And it lets us know what they might be interested in as well. And so if we didn't do pre-assessments, then we would just be choosing random topics and not really caring about what the children knew or what they didn't know or what they were interested in. So yeah, assessment drives instruction. Super important. Okay, so that concludes my insights section. Now on to the implementation of learning. So my goals from last week, I have my continuing goal of praying about how I can help specific children, and then writing down the impressions that I get. And then my goal, based on the readings from last week, was trying to ask children how they can solve their own problems versus always giving my own solutions. With that one, I had a few, I kind of only had one good moment where they came up with the solution to the problem themselves, and it was a decent situation. There was a boy, and he wanted me to cut the skin off of his apples for snack, and I didn't have another knife with me. I just had the apple core, and so I told him I wasn't able to cut the skins off, and he was very visibly upset, and he started whining and crying, and because he didn't get more because he didn't want the apples, he wanted more crackers, and I told him that he was only allowed to have 3 crackers, and that everybody only got 3 crackers, and he was very upset, and I said, I can see that you're very upset right now. You're very disappointed that the skin is on your apples, but you're still only allowed to have 3 crackers. We can't have more than 3 crackers. And I said, so what do you think you can do in this situation? What do you think will make this better? And he sat there quietly for a little while and kind of ignored me. And then he said, I'd like some more water. And so I don't think he was entirely satisfied with the outcome, but I think that one little bit of control where it's like he can't have more crackers, but he can always have more water. And so I think that was his own little solution to that problem, where it's like, I can't have more crackers, but I can have more water. So I said, yes, Bron, you can, I probably shouldn't have said his name. I said, yes, you can have more water. I'd be happy to give you more water. And he stopped crying and whining after that. I don't think that there were, most of the other situations where I was trying to actively use Flip It, I wasn't really asking. I kind of suggested my own solution, and then the children went with that. So that's something that I could continue to work on. As for praying and writing down impressions, when I was preparing for my lesson, I had 2 lesson plans I would do this week, and there were a few activities that I wasn't too proud of, and I kind of wanted to switch them up. And I remembered different interests of the different children. So for my literacy activity for Friday with the mixed up chameleon, I remember having a very positive interaction with one of the children in the lab. He read that book, and we read it like 5 times in a row because he got such a kick out of it. And as I was trying to think of different literacy activities, the idea of, oh my goodness, have felt pieces for the chameleon pop-up book. and yeah, I was very proud of that. And then I also remembered, as I was planning, that one of the children in our lab, he really likes pulling things off and sticking them onto other things. And so I thought, and with both of these children also, I didn't need to come up with an activity that was just for them. They weren't the children assigned for that particular day, but I was still trying to be aware of how I could serve the needs of the other children and serve the interests of the other children, even though it wasn't that day. So that was those were some pretty positive things that happened today, or for that. With my goals for this week, I'm going to have my continuing goal, which is to pray about how I can help individual children, and then writing down my impressions. And then my second goal is I want to focus building relationships with all of the children in the lab, not just, okay, let me clarify. It's not like I'm actively not building relationships with some of the children and I'm really focusing on other children. It's just I find that I interact with some children more frequently than I do with other ones, and so I have a better relationship and I have a better rapport with them. And then it feels like I don't have as strong of relationships with these other children, and so I want to spread my wings a bit, and I want to give attention to more of the children, or purposefully give attention to the children that I haven't been purposefully giving attention to. So that's something that I want to work on this week. Now we go to my support teacher section. We had 2 nature days. They were awesome. The first day was a bit better than the second day, to be honest. But they were still really great, really engaging, really fun. The middle day, Wednesday, I did do snack, and we were outside. It was a water day, so that was kind of interesting. I guess on Friday I was in charge of opening circle, and then I was in charge of check in, check out, and it went fairly smoothly. Opening circle, I guess, was a bit rough because the children are just so used to immediately going to play, and so having to sit and wait for the other children to show up, they were getting kind of antsy. So that was a bit of a struggle, and there were a few children who were very visibly upset, and it was kind of hard to get the attention of the other children when one child is at the front of the group and he's very loudly upset, and that's just something that you gotta roll with. What engaged the children? Oh my goodness, being outside. Being outside was so engaging. They were digging for bugs, they were climbing on rocks, they were climbing trees. They were having so much fun. One of my favorite moments this week, actually, was on Friday, and the children, a couple of them had come back from the bathroom, and they're at the top of this little hill, and they decided they want to lay down on the ground and roll down the hill, and I happened to be standing at the bottom of the hill, and so I started to narrate what they were doing, and they thought it was so funny, so I narrated what they were doing, and they went up to the top of the hill, and it was like I was a sports announcer, and I was announcing this race, and it wasn't like anybody was winning or losing, and it just started with 3 or 4 children, and then it seemed like there were 8 children at the top of the hill at one time, and it was really nice to Logan, he was at the top of the hill, and at one point they all held hands, and so Logan was holding hands with the other children, and he was smiling, and all of them were so happy. They would just run down the hill, and they would run up the hill, and they would run down the hill and run up the hill, and they were all just having fun together, and I was pretending to be a sports announcer, and they just thought it was so funny and so fun, and it was a great moment. It was a really great moment. What did not go well? Wednesday, oh my goodness. So Wednesday, we unfortunately incorrectly assumed that the people who were watching Logan, because there were some people who came in to watch Logan on Wednesday, we incorrectly assumed that they would just, that they were aware of how serious it was, but there were a few new faces, and they didn't realize how quickly you really need, like how closely you need to shadow him and how quickly you need to act. And so there were more incidences of him biting and pinching than there were in a good long while. And One of the parents was very, very upset that this happened, and I mean, we shouldn't have assumed. We should have just been there. And it's hard too because, you know, if someone is there to help us, we want to be able to take advantage of that. But yeah, I think we just need to be much more communicative with whoever comes to observe and shadow Logan, and we need to really appraise them of the whole situation, and we need to, just help them if they need to, and just be on top of things more than we have before. So I guess if I could do things differently, I think I probably would have tried to shadow him more closely if I could have this week. I also realized that it's kind of hard for me to trust some of my teachers sometimes, and it's not like I don't think that they're capable, it's just I have this impulse inside of me where I feel like I need to solve all of these problems. I feel like, I see something that's happening and I need to take care of it, even though I might not be near the situation. And so that's something that I've been trying to be better about, is recognizing that I don't need to solve every single problem, and that I can call attention to the problem for another teacher, and then they can take care of it. So that's something that I need to work on. What have I learned about teacher-led lessons? I mean, I didn't really have teacher-led lessons this week. I mean, it was all team plans, and so we didn't really have specific lessons. It was kind of just opening circle, closing circle, little chants and songs and little games. So there weren't really any teacher-led lessons. It was mostly just doing things familiar with the children. So I think for this week, I don't think I learned anything specific from this week, at least not from the experiences that we had in class. I didn't really differentiate instruction. And that's another thing too, is that with the lesson plans, they weren't really finished very early. And so we didn't get the plans very early. And I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying that I didn't have very much time, and I didn't write down in the margins how I can differentiate instruction. And there was really only, with the nature days, it was emergent curriculum, and so we were kind of just observing the children and I guess kind of facilitating in their play. But most of the time, it was just them doing whatever they wanted, and then just us using parallel talk and making sure that they didn't kill themselves climbing the rocks. And I can't think of anything that I'm concerned about. I am excited about lead teaching this week. I'm lead teaching 2 times this week. I'm a little nervous, but I don't know. I feel really good about my plans. This isn't actually, you know what? I am a little bit concerned. So I don't know. I've noticed with some of the plans that we've had this semester, they weren't as good as they could be. I would look around the room and I'd see the activities that were planned, and I'd see the room just didn't look very exciting. And I don't know, maybe it's just me thinking as an adult that I don't think it's very exciting. Because then, I don't know, like Brother Alan, he's just so nice all the time, and sometimes I don't know if he's just trying to be encouraging or if he legitimately thinks something. And so he would come in and he'd say, yeah, this looks like a fun day. And then I'd look around and I'd be like, it looks like an okay day. I don't know if it looks like a super fun day or anything. And so that's something that I've been trying to do with my lessons, is I've been trying to be a lot more intentional. I've been trying to make it a lot more engaging. I've been trying to take it one step further with my lessons, and there are a few activities this week that I'm very excited about. I'm very excited about the textured car ramp on Wednesday, that science section. I think that the children are going to really like that. I'm excited about the script that I have for dramatic play. I'm excited about my gathering times. I think they're going to be really fun. I'm mostly very proud of my gathering time for Friday, because I came up with that story and I came up with the actions. And it's a silly story. It's kind of it's kind of stupid, but it teaches the content. And Brother Alan was grading my plan, and he said, "Love it!" with 2 exclamation points. So yeah, I'm excited to teach, and I hope it goes well. That's the end of my week 7 journal. I guess, yeah, goodbye until next week.